Okay, good evening and welcome back. So let's take a moment and offer our prayers and salutations for everybody who is working hard for us. Bhunaji, hope your daughter is doing good and serving the community. Excellent, excellent. So,
She's okay. But the cases have come down a lot, so they are going to relieve her
thank
and
God.
engage with the hospitals because she has to do the graduation for the resident doctors.
Okay.
And unfortunately, they can't do it outside, so they're all upset.
Yes. Actually, we need to understand the world is totally different from the world we used to have. And it is going to be like that for some more time till we get the vaccination. Probably this is a means to remind us what we used to enjoy. And at least when we get to that normal state, it will give us an opportunity to enjoy what we never used to appreciate. Okay, so let's get into Atmabodha. Third session. So the first session we talked about the general layers of Vedic scriptures. And we found that Atmabodha is a Prakarana Grantha. And even the Prakarana Grantha, there are two types of Prakarana Grantha. One is introductory Prakarana Grantha, which is to be studied before you pursue any major study of Vedanta. Like before you go to Bhagavad Gita or Brahma Sutra or Upanishad. This will introduce you the terminologies and terms. And there is another categories of Prakarana Granthas which reconcile the teachings of the Upanishads. So those Prakarana Granthas should be studied only after completing the Upanishads. So this one belonging to that introductory category Prakarana Grantha, Atmabodha. And we saw that this has 68 verses and the author believed to be Shankaracharya, and he composed at the request of Atmabodha. And this, the theme of this book is knowledge about ourselves. So we saw a couple of verses. The first verse was like what exactly the purpose of this Atmabodha. So we saw the fourfold nature, right? What exactly is the purpose of this book? What is the benefit of this book? How that is achieved? All that we saw. And from the second verse onwards, actually Shankaracharya directly started introducing the teaching. The second verse we saw that even though there are several spiritual practices like prayers, meditation, chanting, pranayama, homa, ritual, hatha yoga, there are several hundreds of different types of practices are there. But there is only one practice that can make you completely free is knowledge. Knowledge is the only direct means that gives us the self-realization or the moksha. Every other sadhanas are indirect means. And Shankaracharya brought an brilliant example. He said, like when you cook, the fire is there, the vessel is there, the water is there. What exactly cook the rice? It is the fire. But you need to have water and the play means the vessel, everything as a supporting means. But what needs to be noted here is that without the supporting means, the fire cannot cook the rice. But what exactly cook the rice is the fire. So like that, what exactly gives you the moksha? What exactly gives you the self-realization? What exactly takes you to the highest possibilities of life? What exactly make you free from all the suffering is only knowledge. The point we saw was, if ignorance is the cause of suffering, there is only one solution, and that solution is knowledge. So that means only knowledge is the sole remover of ignorance. So let's chant.
Avirodhitaya karma नाविद्यां विनिवर्तयेत् विद्या विद्यां निहन्त्येव तेजस्तिमिरसङ्घवत्.
So he tells avirotitaya karma. So karma here means all the other spiritual practices, whether it is hatha yoga or pranayama or prayers or meditation, everything, or japa yoga, everything, every action, every spiritual activity, avirotitaya, actually they can coexist with ignorance. An interesting statement. What does that mean? Take the example of that 10th man story. Remember that 10th man story. We discussed that story last week. So, the 10 students are searching for a missing person. When they count, they see only 9 people. So at that point of time I said, right, if they sit and practice meditation, will they find the 10th man? Not at all. It may make them a little bit calm. That's it. If they pray, of course the prayer can make them calm and give them some good karma. If they chant some mantras, none of these practices will find the 10th person. The 10th person can be found only when he knows that I am the 10th man. And the process of knowing is called knowledge. So the point Shankaracharya is making here is avirotitaya karma. Avirotha means opposite. Avirotha means not opposite. It can coexist. So the ignorance can coexist with a spiritual practitioner. So somebody can be a bhakta and he can still continue to be ignorant. Somebody can underline this. This is very important. Bhakti has its benefits. So it's like keeping a vessel and putting the rice inside that vessel. Of course it is going to help cooking, but without fire, the food will not get cooked. So a person can be a bhakta, a person can be a hatha yogi, he can do all the asanas, all the 82 asanas he can do. He got the asana siddhi also. But what is going to happen? Still he can be an ignorant person. Ignorant person with respect to what? His own true nature. We need to understand that very clearly, right? We are not talking about his ignorance about hatha yoga. We are talking about his ignorance about himself. So he can be a practitioner of hatha yoga. He still can continue to be an ignorant person. He can be a big bhakta, a devotee, and still he can continue to be an ignorant. But imagine if he knows about himself. If the 10th man realizes that he is the 10th person, where is the source of fear then? This cannot coexist. The moment you realize that my true nature is Atma, not this body and mind, immediately all the problems will vanish. Without that, I might be a best bhakta, I might be a best hatha yogi, I might be a best meditator. That can help me in certain ways, but it cannot remove the knowledge. The point Shankaracharya mentions here once again is, the moment you have knowledge, ignorance disappears. Knowledge and ignorance cannot stay together. The moment you put a light in the dark room, the darkness disappears. Whereas there is a possibility of the karmas and ignorance coexist. And there is no possibility for the knowledge and the ignorance coexist. That's what he tells. And the second line he tells, na avidyam vinivartayet. So they cannot remove the ignorance. They can support the process of removing the ignorance, but they themselves cannot ignorance. What are they? the other spiritual practices, including prayer. So Shankara is very straightforward here, right? So the prayer cannot give anybody a moksha directly. Please understand that. This is the central teaching of Advaita Vedanta. The prayer can help you to gain certain preconditions with which you can seek knowledge. But the prayer or the Hatha Yoga or the Pranayama cannot remove the ignorance completely. Na avidyam vinivartayet. So they cannot remove the ignorance. What can remove ignorance? It is very simple. Even a child knows that. Only knowledge can remove ignorance. And now he tells, Vidya vidyam nihantyeva. So vidya here means self-knowledge. It's only Atmajnana, knowledge about your own self alone can remove your ignorance. Eva, he said only. So this is not a phonetic way of saying that my way or no way. That's not the way. He is telling that knowledge about the self only can remove the ignorance. And he didn't say that that knowledge is found only in Vedas. He didn't say that. He said that only knowledge about yourself can remove your ignorance. So that is not a fanatic statement. Somewhere, means in many places you see, right? If you don't believe in this particular book, you are going to hell. That's not what the teaching is. If you don't know yourself, you may not be able to get there. But that knowledge is available in many places. So, vidya vidyam nihantyeva. And then he tells, tejas timira sankhavat. So what happens? The same example I gave. When you put a light, what happens? The darkness disappears. Like that, when the knowledge about yourself comes, what happens? The ignorance completely goes away. So the point is, please keep in mind, the entire, this first 5 verses of Atmabodha is talking about the spiritual pursuit. How to be in the spiritual pursuit. That is the theme of first 5 verses. So in the second verse he said, every sadhanas are important, but only knowledge is the direct means of getting the moksha. And in the third verse he tells, the other practices, why? That is what it is explained here. The other spiritual practices can coexist with ignorance. So take the example of the dream, the Swapna Drishtanta, the so-called famous metaphor. So in this dream example, the same example I'm quoting again and again. Somebody saw a dream. She was walking in a New York city and somebody spitted her and said that I have corona. So this lady was scared. So imagine, what can remove that fear? Only when she awake to the real world, that was a wrong. That is the only solution. So knowledge only can give you the final destination. Knowledge only is the means for gaining moksha. Now the next question is, now you may ask what? Okay, so let us drop karma yoga. Let us drop prayers. Let us drop pranayama. Let us go and pursue knowledge. This is not your question alone. Our own Arjuna had this famous question in the 3rd chapter of the Gita. So in the 2nd chapter of the Gita, Krishna teaches the same idea. The last 18 verses of the Gita of the 2nd chapter is purely talking about the knowledge. Then on the 3rd chapter, beginning verse, Arjuna asks, Jayasi chet karmanaste maya buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayati keshavaha. If you think that knowledge only can give you the liberation, why are you say that knowledge can give you the liberation and then you are asking me to go and do the yoga? So you say that X is the best and then you are saying that you go and do the Y. Krishna gives the answer. See, knowledge seeking, right? Means we talked about this multiple times. Every means of knowledge to work, there are some prerequisites. For your eyes to capture the image, there has to be sufficient light on the room. If there is not sufficient light, what happens? You may open your eyes and you won't see anything. And if you have a long sight or a short sight, you might be reading, means opening the book in front of you and opening the eyes, but still you cannot read because you need a glass. So the light and the glass, etc. What exactly is reading the book? It is my eyes. But what exactly is the role of light and that glass? It provides the necessary conditions for that knowledge seeking take place, or the means of knowledge to work. So without having that precondition, what is that precondition? If you remember, please keep that in mind. There are two preconditions for this knowledge seeking to work. One is called Chitta Shuddhi, the other one is Chitta Sthiti, the purity of the mind and the stability of the mind. And the purity of the mind is gained through Karma Yoga, and the stability of the mind is gained through Upasana Yoga. So without these, the knowledge will not work. But if somebody asks you whether the Karma Yoga can give you moksha, answer is no. Whether the Upasana Yoga, all the prayers, meditation can give you moksha, no. But it can take you to a sufficient condition or a conducive condition where the knowledge seeking is possible. So interestingly, last week there was a question. I think it was from Vishalji and his son. It was an interesting question. Why we see, means I'm answering that question because that is connected with this verse. So here, so why we see these rishis cursing people? You see Durvasa, anything you say, the next moment, what is going to happen? He gets angry and a curse. Have you listened to this Ambariksha story? This poor king. Actually, Durvasa went for bath and he got late. He has to break his fast. So he just drank a little bit of water. Durvasa was so angry and about to kill him. How is it possible? What is the rationale? The answer is very simple. Is he a self-realized master? No, he is only a practitioner. So the spiritual practitioner can fall into two categories. One is what? Somebody like us. We are doing a worldly life, laukika jivita, right? So we have to go to work, we have to feed our family, we have to pay the mortgage, everything. But still we can be spiritual. So that is one category of people. And the second category of people is what? So there are two different lifestyles in spiritual practices. And the first lifestyle is the lifestyle of a householder. And the second lifestyle is what? Some people are not interested in the worldly life at all. See, they don't care about the family, they don't need the family, they are not interested in going to a movie, they are completely interested in reading the spiritual books, etc. So such people, what they do, they take their profession. Let me use the word profession with a limited meaning. Profession means they dedicate their life for the knowledge seeking. And such people are known as Vividisha Sannyasi. In the so-called world, they call as Sannyasi. So don't think that anybody wearing orange robe is a self-realized master. Anybody sitting and doing a tapa is a self-realized master. It only indicates that at least he is seeking knowledge. Sometimes they may show that they are seeking knowledge, but their goal is different. Those are real frauds. But there are other category of people, most of the people, they are seeking knowledge, but in their own path, they can fall down multiple times. Famous sage Vishwamitra, he has fallen down. You heard that, right? With Menaka. That story is there. Famous story. And after that only, see, till means when he was about to reach the highest, that is the time he fallen down. Then what he had to do? He had to do and practice and practice and practice and practice. Finally, he realized. Once he realized, he's good. So till then, any sage, so a orange person with orange robe, they are called Vividisha Sannyasi. So the sannyasi itself can be classified into three categories. One is called Vividisha Sannyasi, meaning he has taken the role of a sannyasi. He is not yet realized, self-realized. He is practicing his sadhanas for the purity of the mind, for the stability of the mind, but he don't have to do any external profession. He has renounced the world. He has dedicated his life for this knowledge seeking. Eventually, he may or may not realize. That is, only God knows. And the second category of the people are the householders. So they can function as a householder and finally get self-realized. In one of the Upanishads, there is a famous story. So there was a sage who was practicing sadhanas, upasana yogas. This upasana yoga can give you a lot of power as per the Puranas. So one bird just disturbed his penance, and he just looked at the bird, and this bird was burnt. And this sage got so arrogant and proud. Oh my God, I'm so powerful. And he went to a house for piksha. And apparently this lady of the house didn't come out immediately. He got so arrogant. He was about to curse, and this lady came and said, apologized, sorry, I was serving my husband and a child. And he said, how can you insult a sage like that? And I'm going to curse you. And this lady was so strong. She said, don't worry, I am not a bird. So that is the time this sage got completely perplexed. And he prostrated at this mother and he said, like, how did you learn all these things? I wanted to be your disciple. And he said, okay, I will send you to another person. He would be the best person to teach you. Do you know whom did she send to him? A butcher. A butcher. One more story, then we will go. There is a story in the Purana, Vishnu Purana. Narada thought that he is the greatest devotee of Vishnu. And he went to Vishnu and asked him, O Lord, who is your greatest devotee? He was expecting the answer, Narada. But to his surprise, Vishnu said, a peasant or a farmer living in a village. Narada looked at him. He is not even sitting and praying. He is just going and doing his work. How can this happen? So Lord Vishnu told Narada, he gave one challenge. What is that challenge? He said, you have to carry a pot in your head. And that pot was full of oil. And you have to take one pradakshina in front of a temple without spitting a single drop of oil. Narada, with all difficulty, he was able to do that. When he came back, Vishnu, congratulations. By the way, how many times you chanted my name? Narada said 0. So Vishnu said, this farmer, he is struggling a hard life. In between, he prays Narayana, Narayana a little bit, and his mind is always with me, and he is a better devotee. So that's why the role or the physical action or the words you speak cannot determine the spiritual maturity of a person. So this is very important. So let's continue. So other spiritual practices can coexist with ignorance, and they cannot remove the ignorance. Only self-knowledge can remove the ignorance. Just like the light can remove the darkness, the self-knowledge will remove all the ignorance.
Rajeshji,
Yeah.
that second line on the text, it says,
Yeah.
ignorance cannot destroy its effects. Do they mean that your actions result? That's what it
No,
means?
it means it cannot. So the verse is na avidyam vinivartayet. It cannot remove what? Avidya. Avidya means ignorance. Ignorance cannot be removed. That's what the verse tells. The other spiritual practices cannot remove the self-ignorance. Only knowledge can remove the self-ignorance. Like a light can remove the darkness, the Atmajnana can remove all the self-ignorance. Na avidyam vinivartayet. Avidya cannot remove the ignorance. Sorry, yeah, ignorance. Avidya is ignorance. Sorry.
No, I was looking at the text and it says destroy its effects. That means I thought if you cannot blame, say that I'm ignorant and do things and.
No, it is a self-ignorance. So sometimes the English translations we need to be very careful. That's why line by line we need to connect the dots, because this is the problem when we read the English commentary alone. It can completely mislead you. So the first verse tell it can coexist with means the other practices. The other practices can coexist. It's not opposed to ignorance. So ignorance can coexist with them. That's why I was giving the example. You can be a great devotee and still ignorant. You can be a great hatha yogi, you can still be ignorant. So now he's going to talk about a little bit more on the ignorance part. So this is verse 4.
Parichinna ivajnanat tannashe sati kevalaha swayam prakashate hyatma megha payem shumaniva.
Again, means the beauty of Atmabodha you might have noticed, right? Every verse has one example. That is the speciality of this book. Brilliant poetry. So let's talk about that. He tells Parishchinna Ivajnanat. That is very interesting, right? So Jnanat, the true self or the Atma, Iva, is covered by Parishchinna Iva Ajnanat. So the Ajnana means ignorance. So the ignorance completely covers or veils what? The Atma, the true self. So the self-ignorance completely covers the knowledge about the Atma. And then he tells, Tannashe sati kevalaha. So when that ignorance is removed, what happens? You don't have to do anything to reveal the Atma. What happens? Soyam prakashyate hyatma. The Atma will automatically revealed. So the only thing you need to do is remove the ignorance. What happens? The Atma will be automatically revealed. How? Means the last line is very important. Mekha payem shumaniva. Mekha is what? Clouds. Amshuman. Amshuman is what? Amshu means ray, the one who emits radiation. Sun. That is Amshuman. So when there is cloud, can you perceive the sun? Can you see the sun? Look at the screen. When there is a big cloud, even though the sun is there in the sky, you cannot see the sun in its full glory. So like that, what happens? The cloud of ignorance prevents your view of your own true self. Even though you look at yourself, what is going to happen? The cloud of ignorance, it just blocks your vision of the self. And then what he tells, only by removing this ignorance, you just need to remove this ignorance. What happens? The Atma will automatically appear in front of you. Just like when this cloud goes away with a small breeze or a wind, what is going to happen? The sun gets automatically revealed to you. So once again, the reason is, just think about this. I don't have to tell you. Each one of you know from different sources, whether it is Vedanta or positive psychology or behavioral psychology, if you take, or even the neurology, if you take, every science tells you that the happiness cannot be created. You have to find the happiness within you. And every science tells you that each one of us has enough happiness. We just need to find out. But is that what my experience is? Why am I not seeing that happiness which is already there in me? It's totally contradictory effect. I'm told that my nature is full of happiness. But when I look at myself, I see everything but happiness. Why? That's exactly what the answer is. The self-ignorance blocks the vision of your own self. When your vision of your own self is blocked, that happiness, that Atma cannot be experienced. And what you have to do to remove that ignorance? Knowledge. Only through knowledge you can remove it. And when you remove the ignorance, what happens? The Atma reveals by itself. So this is what it is. So Atma, or each one of us, appears as limited, sad, problematic, because we are not perceiving our own true self. This is another example which we explained a lot in the Bhagavad Gita. See, this bucket is there, the sun is there, and what we are seeing, our own reflection, is the reflection of the sun. So imagine, I talked this example in the Vedanta class multiple times. Imagine that bucket of water is muddy and turbulent. When you look at the sun, do you see the real sun? You will see a muddy sun and a dancing sun. That's exactly what it is. Because of the ignorance, you cannot see the real self properly. And another point is that, let's go to the same example. The clouds block the visibility of the sun. Truly, is the sun is limited? Is the sun is affected by anything? Absolutely not. The sun exists as it is. Only thing is that I am not seeing it. So you don't have to change your Atma. You don't have to think that your Atma is not capable of giving happiness. No, not at all. The problem is that you are not seeing your true Atma properly. So when the cloud of ignorance is removed, what happens? The sun of Atma, the sun, reveals to you. No modification of sun state is required for this. Just remove the ignorance. So brilliant examples again, right? Each examples are so brilliant. From that worldview, he has picked up brilliant example to demonstrate this. So once again, the key thing you wanted to talk about is this chart. So the Atma, I am not able to see my Atma properly. That is the problem, right? So the first you have to remove the ignorance. And before seeking the knowledge, what happens? You have some problem. The cover, the Atma is veiled by a lot of problems. One is the Malam, the second one is Vikshepam. Malam means impurities, Vikshepam means turbulence. And this Atma, typically you mistake the Atma as one of the three bodies or the combination of any bodies. Remember, what are the three bodies? The physical body, the subtle body, or the causal body. Sometimes I identify with my physical body. Sometimes I identify with the subtle body. Sometimes I identify with a combination of physical body and subtle body. And sometimes I identify with the causal body in deep sleep. And sometimes means identification with Panchakosha, Annamaya, that is a functionality of the body. And sometimes I am a dreamer, sometimes I am a waker, sometimes I am a deep sleeper. So the difference is all these things has to be understood as upadhis or the equipments or the gadgets available to me. And if I identify myself with the gadget, I'll be in problem. So remove ignorance. And when you remove that ignorance, what happens? The knowledge is means the sun. You don't have to create the Atma. The Atma is self-effulgent. You will realize that your consciousness. What is consciousness, by the way, if you remember? It is the neural definition of, not the neural definition of the consciousness. The consciousness we are talking is that by which we are aware of our thoughts and emotions. That becomes visible. That's the fourth verse. So let's go to the fifth verse. Again, knowledge.
Ajnana-kalusham jivam jnana-abhyasad-vinimmalam Kritva jnanam swayam nashyet jalam kataka-renuvat.
So, the ultimate goal of all the spiritual practices is to remove this ignorance. Because the fundamental problem is, I am not perceiving myself properly. I am not perceiving myself properly. Why the dreamer was afraid of that corona? Because he identified himself with the dream object. As long as that identification is there, he is under the risk of corona and she is afraid. Right? So, I am not identifying with my own Atma, my own self properly. Atma means yourself, that's it. Atma properly. And when there is an error in perception, when there is an error, the only solution is the knowledge. And how knowledge can remove that ignorance, and when that ignorance is removed, what happens? You will be fine. So, ajnana kalusham jivam, a person who is tainted by ignorance, what happens? Is purified when ignorance vanishes due to self-knowledge. So, continuous practice of knowledge, and the knowledge practice is done through three means. One is Shravanam, second one is Mananam, and the third one is Nitithyasanam. So, first you have to listen like this from a group or from a textbook or from a teacher. So, the study of the scripture under a competent master for a sufficient period of time. This is the three qualification. The study of the scriptures under a teacher, under a traditionally qualified teacher for a sufficient period of time is the Shravanam. Mananam is the contemplation of what you studied. You need to understand and connect the dots and make sure that it flows properly. Nidithyasanam is what? Contemplation again on that and internalization of what you learned. So these three processes is going to gain me knowledge. Forget about the spiritual practice also. Like everything is like this. But then out of enthusiasm, don't think that tomorrow you can pursue this Sravanam, Mananam, Nidithyasanam easily. Of course, this has to be continued. But along with that, you have to gain the other two pre-qualification. I want to highlight that again and again and again. Chitta Shuddhi and Chitta Sthiti. So, Ajnana Kalusham Jivam Jnana Phyasa Advi Nirmalam. So, continuous practices of knowledge, self-knowledge will purify the individual. And then what is he saying? Kritva jnanam swayam nashyet. So when you get the knowledge, what happens? The ignorance automatically vanishes. The ignorance automatically vanishes. So again, one more example. He tells Jalam Kataka-nut. Have you heard of this Kataka-nut? That's another story. So in ancient India, we don't have this water purifier or filter or anything like that. So in Shankara's time, there was a nut called this Kataka-nut. I don't know what is the English, what they call. There's a nut. I didn't take the picture. So this Kataka-nut, they make it as a powder and whatever water they take from any water source, it has mud or other impurities. So they put this powder into that water, and you can see here, like this is what happens. Once that nut is put, powder is put, all the impurities will precipitate at the bottom, and you can just filter the water with a cloth or something like that. So the Kataka Renu, it purifies the water. Just like that, the knowledge purifies the individual and helps him to see the Atma properly. Typically,
it's called Nirmali in Hindi and Tennankotai in Tamil.
Okay, yeah. Kataka is the Sanskrit.
Soap nut powder, they call it.
Yeah, soap nut powder. Even if you Google it, like in some other countries also they use.
Tennankotai.
Nice.
What is it in Tamil?
Tennankotai.
Wow.
Tennankotai.
Yeah, Tennankotai. Clearing nut tree. So the tree is called.
Yeah, Kataka Renu. So typically an individual is identified with his body, the mind, and will not recognize the Atma properly. So this ignorance is destroyed completely when you gain that knowledge. So the constant practice of self-knowledge purifies the egocentric individual to the real individual. So mind you, the Atma is not going through any change. The change is happening in your mind, because it is through the mind you see the Atma. And when the mind is pure, calm, controlled, and when the knowledge takes place, you will be able to see the Atma. Swami Vivekananda gives a brilliant example in his commentary on Yoga Sutra. In his second commentary on the second verse, Swami Vivekananda tells, imagine there is a diamond lying under a pond. So, this pond has two problems. First problem is the water is completely dirty. Second problem is what? The water is completely turbulent. So you are searching for this diamond. You are searching under the on the tree. You are searching in a cave. You are doing here, there, everywhere. At that point of time, a master comes and tells you that what exactly is the knowledge? Knowledge is the diamond is under the pond, inside the pond. So he reads a scripture, or a master says that, okay, this diamond is under this pond. So when he looks at the pond, he is not going to see anything. So that knowledge will not work. So what he has to do first? First he has to clean the dirt of the pond. Second, he has to make the water calm. And then he applies the knowledge. What is the knowledge? Knowledge is the diamond is under the pond. He is going to see that. So this summarizes the entire spectrum of spiritual practices. Karma Yoga cleans the mind. Upasana Yoga calms the mind. And Jnana Yoga is going to help to see the Atma. So the Karma Yoga cannot even if you clean the pond, you don't know that the diamond is under the pond. You will not look there. You have to look there. So the Jnana Yoga helps you to look inside and see the Atma. Karma Yoga will make sure that all the impurities are removed. Upasana Yoga will make sure that the mind is calm. So all these has to be there, but the direct practice is, the direct means is knowledge. So this is the fifth verse. So we covered 5 verses total, and that first 5 verses are the spiritual pursuit. So after introducing this text, Shankaracharya tells, who is qualified to study this? See, tapopi china papanam, shantanam vidaraginam, right? Beautifully he explained. With your spiritual practices, somebody purified his mind and emotionally intelligent. Mumukshunam, he has to have a desire to know himself. To that person, I'm giving you this knowledge by which you can discover your Atma. And then he tells, only knowledge is the direct means for moksha. Everything else is secondary means. And then he tells typically what? The Atma is covered by the cloud, means the sun, just like a sun is covered by the clouds, Atma is covered by the cloud of ignorance. And when the cloud goes away, what happens? There is no place, means sun will reveal itself. So finally we saw that, see what happens. Constant practices of knowledge, it purifies the individual self, meaning the egocentric self. Just like this Kataka Renu, the Kataka powder, it purifies the water. The knowledge purifies the individual. These are the spiritual pursuit. So the take home message is, this is the entire spiritual pursuit. Karma Yoga, it is for the purity of the mind. Upasana Yoga, it is the stability or the integration of the mind. And Jnana Yoga, it is for the self-knowledge. This is the entire spiritual pursuit. And Shankaracharya was introducing this. And this teaching is important. This sequence and this these steps are very important in any spiritual pursuit. Without this, you cannot, because one without the other, everything is complementary. Okay, so now Shankaracharya is going to talk about the world in the next few verses, which we'll see next week.
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.